Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from New Zealand. And today I'm sharing with you how I made this card using the Artfully Layered set, one of my favourite sets from the January to June mini catalogue. And I made it for a blog hop, a blog hop at Around the World on Wednesday, which is a crew I belong to. And the theme this month was particularly interesting. You had to be inspired by something you'd found in a market or a shop. And I found this, quite by accident, this beautiful wrapping paper, which spoke to me very much of the Artfully Layered set. And so my inspiration for this card comes from this wrapping paper. And I think you can see how that's translated pretty well. So we'll start off by looking at what you need to make this card. So we'll pop the stamp set aside. Right, I've used a Whisper White heavy cardstock base. As always, or pretty much always, 14.8 centimetres tall, the width of a piece of A4 paper and scored at 10.5 centimetres. Now I've got a piece of what should be gold foil, but I'm actually moving house, and when it came to find my gold foil I couldn't find it anywhere, so I've used brass instead, and I think it's a fine substitution. You could make it with copper if you wanted to. Anyway, so this is a piece of faux gold foil, 10 by 14.3, which is going to go on there. And another piece of basic white, which is 0.5 centimetre smaller, so it's 9.5 by 13.8. And there's also a piece of Whisper White, basic white, 10 by 14.3 for the inside, because I like to balance the weight of the front and the back. In addition to that, I've got a strip of vellum, which is 6 centimetres wide, and it is that way, and it's longer than the width, or wider than the width of the piece of paper, because that's to do with how I like to attach vellum. In addition to that, I have die cut out already 4 of these pretty skeleton leaves, which are my absolute favourites from the Tropical Layers set. So I've done 4 of them, 2 in the pretend gold and 2 in white. Now I didn't do that for my sample card, but what I've done for these ones is I've backed them with the Stampin' Up adhesive double-sided sheet because glue and foil don't play nicely. So to try and minimise the amount of glue I'm using, I've put adhesive backing onto those. Now for my sentiment, I have already done that. I've already stamped it for you. I used the Congratulations from Art Gallery because I really like these sort of strong fonts. I did debate with myself about whether I would gold emboss it, but then I decided that was just too much of a good thing. So I have stamped it in tuxedo black, but obviously you could gold emboss it if you were going to make this card. And I used the die from the Meadows dies to get that lovely little decorative stitched tag for it. And as you can see, I've also used, you're also going to need some of this frayed ribbon, the 3/4 inch frayed ribbon, and some of the Simply Elegant trim. I'm going to use some of that gold when we get up to the assembly point. Okay, so that's everything you need. Quite a lot of stuff, but actually not very much actual stamping involved in this card. In fact, apart from the sentiment, which I've already done, the only stamp I've used is this one, that lovely leaf. So I'm going to take that piece of white, I'm going to embossing buddy it, because, you know, when I first started stamping I thought embossing buddying was just an excuse to sell me something new, but actually it makes a huge difference and you really shouldn't emboss without one. So again, I've just used the Versamark ink, and I'm just going to stamp my way over this piece. Now, I usually start with, you know, a couple of big ones in the middle, but when you're doing all over stamping like this, you don't want to make it look like everything's inside the frame. So I think you have to kind of think of it as you're making a piece of fabric, and you want to, you want it to look like it's a piece of fabric which has had the design cut all the way through. So you just keep on stamping. You probably can't see on video, but I can see in real life because of the angle of the light. I can see where I've stamped. Now, if of course you couldn't, then there's no reason why you can't Versamark, emboss, come back when you've embossed it, and that way you can see more clearly what you're doing. So I'm going to assume that everybody knows how to emboss that. So I'm going to take, you would take that away, put your powder on, heat it up, and voila, here is one that I prepared earlier. So you get that nice all over effect. Now, this card, once you've got all the bits, is actually pretty quick to assemble. So again, as I've said, foil and glue don't really play very nicely together. I'm going to take my life in my hands and do it. But I am going to do it this way. I'm going to do it in such a way as I hope to avoid having any kind of ooze. So my silicone mat, and I'm just going to dabble some glue on the back. In fact, I needed a little bit more. When you use glue with a dauber like this, you do lose the wiggle room, or mostly you lose the wiggle room. But it is one way of negotiating the dilemma of foil and glue. So let's just see if I can do that without, look at that. Lovely. You can do that without any oozy glue getting out everywhere. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is add my vellum. Now the reason I added a vellum strip is because I just felt there was a lot of same colour on same colour happening here, and the vellum just helped to soften down the background. So, if you were making this card and you didn't feel that way, then don't do it. But I kind of liked it. So the way I like to do vellum like this, because, things show through, is I like to fold it over and attach it at the back. That's one way of dealing with it. So where is my Stampin' Seal? Here it is. Because the whole thing is going to be glued later, I'm just going to use some Stampin' Seal to hold that in place. Okay, so now I've attached my vellum. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add on my ribbon. Now, normally what I would do at about this point, I would have attached the front to the base, but I have actually got another thing that needs to be attached into the back, and that is the gold trim. So I'm going to start with my frayed ribbon, which I haven't yet frayed. So I'll just take my pick tool to just fray out some of the end. Doesn't really matter how much you fray out, like you can fray a lot or a little, doesn't really matter. Just what you like the look of particularly. Stuck to my gluey finger. Okay, so we'll spread that one out. Oh, it's just to get rid of that stray character. And fray the other end. Okay. How's that looking? It's looking... There you go, he's looking nice. So he's going to go there. And I'm going to attach him with a bit of, oops, helps if you take the lid off, a bit of Stampin' Seal just to hold him in place. Oops. And now I'm going to add in, actually no, I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to start attaching some of these. So let me just peel off the backing. Okay, so the take your pick tool is pretty handy for just getting that started. Okay, now I want it to peel off gently because I don't want to bend it out of shape any more than I have to. Okay, so we'll pop him on. Now, I am going to put my okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to thread a little bit of the gold trim. Oh, a join, perfect. I'm just going to thread some gold. I'm going to actually through. Okay. Yep, he'll be long enough. So I'm going to go under and then through. Yep, and I'm going to pop some dimensionals on the back. Again, you know I'm going to use plenty. So I'm going to use one in the middle. I'm actually going to be quite restrained. I'm only going to use 3. I'm going to flick off the back of those. And then we're going to pop that in the middle. We're going to wiggle that through. We're going to have a little bit more tape just to act as a holder. Okay, so we're just going to wiggle that through the fringe, pop him in there, wiggle him through the fringe, pop him in there. Oops. Clearly didn't like it there. Okay, so now that we've done all of that, now I can pop in some glue. And I'm going to make sure I glue those because I don't want them to pop out at an inopportune moment. And we're going to attach that to the card base. And because I have used glue and I haven't sponged it on, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to have some wiggle room and I'm going to hope it doesn't ooze out and get onto my foil. And I think we have succeeded on both those counts. Now, the very last thing we're going to do to the front is I'm going to cut off that little knot of the join, which does happen sometimes, and I'm going to cut myself about 20 centimetres. And I'm going to pop that through underneath there and tie myself a bow. Nice. Okay, now the inside of this card is getting a very simple treatment. It is getting that, and I've still got this lovely outline of a leaf, and I'm going to simply flick, she said, simply flick that off. Okay. Obviously the adhesive backing's got more ideas than I have, okay. And now that it is off, I'm just going to pop it in like that and pop it in Nice firm crease at the back. And there we have it, a card using the Artfully Layered bundle inspired by this gorgeous wrapping paper. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have questions or comments, I can be contacted through my Facebook page and my blog, the details of which are going to pop up on the end card and are available in the video description below. And if you live in New Zealand, you are welcome to shop with me, and there are links to my store again below this video description on my blog and on my Facebook page. Thank you very much for joining me.